Hey guys, Josh with the Update Channel, and what do we got behind me today? Not a truck, not a haul truck, not a grinder. Well, what it is that's a C18 right there, which the last engine I worked on, did videos on, was C18. But this is not a grinder. You might be seeing a humongous tire. How big? Well, it's taller than me. I'm not 7 feet tall, but it's taller than me. This is a humongous wheel loader. Although it doesn't load wheels, it loads logs apparently. Let's look at this beast. So these are the log clamps. As you can see, they are humongous. This is a 988. Josh, you don't like working on equipment though. That's true, I do not. But I'm working on the engine, so let's go work on it. One of the biggest pain in the butts on the C18 is it has the full length, full size block stiffener plate and a 2-piece oil pan. So that's a pain in the butt. So we're underneath our engine here, getting ready to pull the old cylinder packs out. It has our cooling jets out, as you always want to do, but I was cleaning I'm not sure what this massive, disgusting slop is here, and I pulled some sort of belt snake rubber thing that was about 3 feet long out of this muck, and then we started getting about 10 gallons of mystery fluid. Has an interesting coolant scent to it, but yeah, just, you know, fun non-truck stuff. Hey guys, so we got the rod caps off here, at least off 3 and 4. Looks like it's got standard bearings. The lowers look pretty good, although obviously uppers are what wear on rod bearings generally. I've got this hammer from Impact Polyhammers, and they make, according to them, the nicest dead blow hammers. I've used my Cat one for a long time for pushing the liners up out of. This one's a little longer, or shorter than that one. It's smaller too, but it's a double-faced one. Seems really nice. I haven't used it yet, obviously. It's very clean, still has the tag on them. They're not paying me to promote it or anything, but since they sent them to me, I'm gonna be using it and trying it out. And maybe you've never heard of them before, maybe check them out. So what my buddy Jake here is doing is removing the carbon at the top of the liner here to help get the piston out. They will not come out without it, and this is actually his customer. So here's our buddy Jake again. And if you see on his hat there, it says Big Iron. That is his company. He does a lot of equipment repairs, welding, fabricating, line boring, but he doesn't do much engine stuff. That's kind of where I'm coming in here. So reason my engine puller, or not engine puller, liner puller here, and he's pulling them out. I'm then setting them down. He's never used one of these before, so kind of showing him how to do this. Now this customer wanted this done quickly. We only had a week to do the in-frame, and they had a big job coming up. So we kind of had to do this together. Not only that, my gantry crane to pull the head wouldn't have fit because it's such a big machine, and my crane setup's really meant for pulling him on a truck. He had pulled the head, actually. I wasn't involved in pulling the head at all, so he had done all the disassembly, most of the deck cleaning, and indispensable in this job. There's no way it would have been done by me by myself. So really nice too, since it's so hard to get underneath and then on top for pushing the pistons out, stuff like that. So yeah, he's just getting these out, and what's crazy is these are the darkest liners I've ever seen, and I don't mean the insides, I mean the outsides. There's just a ton of carbon built up around the cooling jackets of the liner. According to him, they had been running this for months with it eating tons of coolant. So what was happening was the head gasket had blown, and it was forcing all that combustion gas into the cooling system, and that's really what was causing so much carbon buildup. I took a picture of the liners here. I'll show you after we get them out. And the head gasket was blown, not surprisingly, on one of the rear cylinders. It always seems like it's the rear more than the front cylinders that seem to lose the head gasket. So here's a picture of the liners. Look at that, is carbon. And what's kind of bad is the inside of the liners were fine. Like the crosshatch, everything was fine. It's just it sunk the liners on particularly 5. 5 was the worst, and I actually didn't get a picture of the old head gasket, but it's one of the downsides when you don't start the job. You don't really get a chance to document all the disassembly. Here's a zoom in on him here. Yeah, it's a ton of carbon. I've never seen that before. He said the carbon was so bad he had to pry the spacer plate off the engine to the point where it actually bent the spacer plate. They just ran it so long it had passed that much carbon and just built up around the spacer plate and was in the cooling system. So not good, but no cavitation. So we got the liners out here, and you can see with the liners out, you can see the ring there where the liners was sinking. But if you look on number 5, it's really bad. So look at that. It's just the block was gone there. We ended up having to cut, well, we cut counterbores on all of them, but this one, that section of the block was missing, I think, to about 8 thousandths before it actually started taking material out of that section. So yeah, it was sunk really bad. So we're getting ready to cut counterbores here. The deck prep's pretty much all done. We've got a Monaco counterbore cutter, which is pretty much the only one I ever use. It's the only one I have, but it's a great cutter. I've only used this one once since I bought it, but we're going to be using it here. The downside is it's cold. It's January, we're in North Idaho. I think it's about 30 degrees outside. You can see your breath in here. We have this big heater. This week's Destruction of the Week comes from Johnny G. Goldsmith. And what did he send? Well, you know those injector cup seals they send you in a platinum kit or a head gasket kit, but you rarely use them because the new cups come in the head? Well, this customer decided to put them on the injectors for the injector O-rings. Apparently it filled the cooling system up with fuel. Next one we have from Alex here, and this is an N14 Cummins with an extra inspection hole with the crank that you can see out of both sides. So not good for that little Cummins, at least it wasn't a cat. Next one we have is from Jerry. Jerry's working on a John Deere. Very interesting green engine there. And this one actually just, the water pump just decided to explode. He said the job was actually quite hard to get out. It was in a tractor. And just glad I wasn't doing it because it didn't look like fun. But thought I would show you the pictures here. Thanks everyone for submitted them. Let's get back to work. Yeah, not sure the positioning on that, but I didn't put it there anyway. But what we're trying to do is, this has to be warm or you literally can't even use the tool. As you can see, I can't move the cutting head in relation to the base because it's actually cold. Just grabbing it, it's probably 40 degrees maybe. So I'm trying to get it warmed up so that I can actually cut. So we'll be waiting for that. Still have a little more block prep to do, clean out the head bolt holes. But other than that, ready to cut, just waiting for that to warm up. So here we are doing our counterbores here, and number 5, that's when we discovered that it needed, well, it had about 8 thousandths wear between the liners there. And the cuts all came out about perfect, about 29 thousandths. It looks like when we got the liner shims that Cat is using a different supplier for the liner shims, which is unusual. I'm used to seeing the one same liner shims for forever. Of course, after that, have to put all your cylinder packs in, and we measured liner protrusion, all between 5 and 6 thousandths, so that's perfect. Of course, you don't want to go over 6, and you don't want to go under 3.5. So I might cut the next ones at 29.5 or 30 thousandths, because I would prefer to have them be closer to 5 than between 5 and 6, but still within spec. I guess it'll give them more time before they sink again if they're at 6 though. So what we got here is we are getting ready to set the cylinder head. Now this engine's actually, it's a C18, so you're probably thinking, oh, big horsepower, right? But it's actually only 500 horsepower, which makes me wonder why they even use a C18. Why not use a C15 and use normal size liners and everything? It's kind of weird. Not really sure why they use a C18, because a C15 can certainly make a lot more power than 500 horsepower, but you know what? Maybe the engineers know something that I don't know. And of course what we're doing here is getting all of the rust preventative junk off the cylinder head. You know, it's really weird that, let's say for the cylinder packs themselves, they do not use a whole bunch of rust preventative. But on the heads, it's literally about 3/8 of an inch thick with this nasty grease stuff. And I wish they would stop using so much of it, but oh well. So yeah, I was showing him how to cut the counterbores there, which he has not done before, but he has a lot of machining experience. He makes a lot of things. He does line boring, so he was probably the easiest person I've ever tried to explain the concepts of what we're doing, because it makes a lot of sense if you've already done a lot of machining and measuring to thousandths. In fact, he was talking to me mostly while we were doing that about how you line bore more than I was. It seemed like telling him how to cut the counterbores, which, of course, I did most of the cutting, but he wanted to try it a few times. Pretty interesting process, and he's a subscriber also, so he's seen the videos of how you do it. And yeah, we're just setting the head here. You saw us getting the truck super close there. The reason is because the angle. So that cooling package, which is the rear section of the wheel loader there, if you're too far back, it's kind of a weird angle for the crane. So we had to get it as close as possible to get this head. And yeah, these heads are not light at all. They're, I think, around 500 pounds, and then you add on, well, we hadn't set the exhaust manifold on, but it does have the cam in it. Don't forget to put that in there. That would be a pain in the butt trying to get it in there with the head on. But yeah, I should have did a close up here. This was more of a time lapse, but yeah, we got the head set very next day after doing liner protrusion, counterbores and all that. We'd done the main bearings the day before also. But yeah, we're just getting her set here, and then we got to torque it down. Now, you can't tell from this video either. It just looks like a normal service truck, but this is actually a custom service truck. So it has a Peterbilt front end off of a tractor trailer, and actually did a video on that truck before it became a service truck. It's the one with the single turbo C18, and that is now his service truck. So very cool looking rig that he's got there. So what we're doing here is the head's on, cam gear's on obviously. We are measuring the backlash for the cam gear. And when we're setting it, it needs to be less than 24 thousandths and more than 4 thousandths. But as you can see, it is definitely more than 24 thousandths, unfortunately. Now, it always irritates me when it measures off, because sometimes it takes seemingly forever to get it within spec. Because you got to pull the idler gear off, and then you end up guessing checking to reposition this. Now, it's weird that this one's so loose, but what we're going to do is there's an alignment hole right there. It looks like an empty bolt hole. And if you see, there's a pinhole behind that, and it looks like it's way off. Usually, it's pretty much straight up and down. It's aligned. Both holes are aligned. Some live commentary here. So we're at 24 thousandths now. It's snug, but it shouldn't be. It should be really not going in. It still goes in, so we're probably a little on the loose side still. It did move our timing mark directly underneath by, I basically can just see a sliver of metal of the inner alignment hole. So what I'm gonna do is take the gear back off, align it directly on, and I think that'll do it. Let's try again. Okay, so we have the gear up here. You can see the retaining bolts. Make sure you torque those before putting the gear back on, but if you look here, that's where I had it, and you can see just a sliver of the upper part of the alignment hole there. So I think if we just get it to where it's perfectly flush, we'll be dead on there, which is weird. Now, I didn't pull this head, so I didn't check. Usually I'll check it before pulling it, at least measure it so I know what I'm working with, but regardless now, it's got to be right when it goes back together. So if you look in that hole, we are basically pretty much exactly lined up with our hole here. Might even be a little bit past. So let me rotate it up just a little bit. All we're doing is fine-tuning this. And you have quite a bit of variance, 24 thousandths plus or minus. So that just moved it that way. Like you can see, there's not a big difference there. When you're only dealing with thousandths of inches, makes a big difference. Let's tighten two bolts And we're just snugging them. They don't have to be torqued yet. Tight. Tight. Okay. You can see they're on sliding holes. So that's tight. So we put our gear on. Put the gear on the hub here. It slides on. It's a good sign, slides right in. Our alignment is right under, so that's very good. So now we measure our backlash again, which it seems less. Talking to thousands of people here. So 24 is the max, which is what I have here, 24 thousandths. So if it doesn't fit, I think we got a winner. Yep, 24 does not fit. It's definitely got backlash though, as you can see. So let's try 14. So it's 14. 14 fits, but 24 doesn't. We're good. So now pull the gear off, torque all the bolts here, torque these cover plates, and we're good. It's a good idea too to rotate the engine twice, just to make sure it pins with the cam. But yeah, that's how you fix it if your backlash is off. So the rest of the head went normal. They got new injectors, new camshaft, new rockers, did the overhead. And what we're looking at here, this is a part number for a one-piece oil pan gasket here. This is a stamped steel style. I know there's a part number for a kind of a fiber style one piece also, but these are what we got. Unfortunately, we can't use this between the stiffener plate and the block because of the way it mounts. You would have a gap where the bolts torque to the block. So, but we can use this between the pan and the stiffener plate, which is good. This is what one of the most aggravating things about CAT is these. I really hate these puzzle gaskets, and you can see why they're called puzzle gaskets. They are literally a puzzle, and you have to put the 16 different pieces together and then glue it in place, or they'll leak. So anywhere there's a joint, folks, in a gasket or a seal, there can be a leak. So when you have a multi-piece oil pan and a gasket that's made out of puzzle pieces, you've got a potential for about 10 quadrillion leaks. So thank you, Cat, for that wonderful, brilliant design. But, oh well, what are you going to do? So what we're doing here is one of the most tedious things, which is getting off the old gasket material. And on these cast aluminum pans, you have to be careful because obviously they're aluminum. And there are some various tricks you can do for getting gasket material off different things. There's a trick where you can tap it with a hammer. I don't want to do that on anything aluminum like this. I'd really hate to crack or dent the pan. I've noticed with the hammer trick too, it does leave little indentations in the submaterial, so I've really stopped doing that. Although on something like the spacer plate, you could do that. It's probably not going to hurt it. Or not the spacer plate, the block stiffener plate. But so we just basically have to scrape all this off, and this is obviously a time lapse here, so it took longer than the video here to get this gasket off. And I know a lot of guys use the buzz wheels and get it off that way. I really don't like doing that for a variety of reasons. That's a good way to get low spots in this pan, which of course can cause leaks. But not only that, it then turns that old gasket into dust, into dirt, and just sends it everywhere, into the pan, all throughout wherever you're working, into any parts, into the engine. So really prefer to scrape. It does take a little longer, but you know you're not distorting the pan it that way. Now, if anyone here watching, which, you know, I'm assuming more than 2 people are going to watch this, and probably at least 2 of them are mechanics, if you guys know of a better way that doesn't involve getting out an angle grinder to get this material off of here without scraping, and you can see I was using actually a wood chisel, which was someone's recommendation on video. I really like using that. I use this razor blade scraper and then also the carbide scraper. They all have their place, but I did get it off, obviously. I've got the pan in there. Before we get to that, I want to do a little, not really a commercial. My buddy Derek, who's a subscriber, makes my stickers for me, and who doesn't want a legalized asbestos sticker? He makes all sort of custom stickers and stuff. I'll put a link to his channel here. Like I said, he's not paying me, but if you want a Screaming Goat sticker, a Dep Tape sticker, check him out. He makes really cool stuff, and made here in the USA. So that's our multi-piece oil pan up there. Yeah, it ran great. It started right up immediately, which was cool. It does have a priming pump for the fuel system, so that made it good. And they immediately put it to work unloading log trucks. Pretty cool project. Glad I got her done in time, and thanks for watching.